Alrighty. Alrighty. Now I'm gonna just check our levels. How's your? I can't imagine you can hold stuff. Can you hold this like that?
Yeah. They kept testing me today, see if I had a grip in my arms and hand.
Okay. Yes, please. Thank you so much.
Oh, okay. Now, what you want to start?
Just go ahead and pull it. I just want to get some levels. So if you don't mind, just kind of talking to me in general, so I can get your levels. I need, you know what I mean when I say that? Checking your volume.
Yeah.
Okay. So pull it a little closer to you.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good. Do you want to go ahead and when's your birthday? How old are you and when's your birthday?
63.
You're 63?
Yes, I am.
That's nothing. Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah.
You're only 63. That means you're going to be here another 30 years.
I hope. And some.
And some.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah.
For real. You can go ahead and let me just turn you up. You're very soft spoken.
Yeah.
So now, were you younger than my mom? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the baby. I'm the last pea in the pot, as they would know the expression.
Wow.
Yeah, the 14th of 14.
The 14th of 14. How old would Roy be right now?
Roy would be 2 years older than me. He would be 65.
He'd be 65, and my mother would be turning 66 this year.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Did you? Well, I guess you already knew that she stayed with us until she was about 13.
Oh, I thought
Yeah.
you said she was 9.
Well, I thought she said 13. It could be 9 if you want to use 9. That's good.
Okay. Well,
But anyway, everybody thought that she was our sister. Yeah, because she was just so close right there with Roy and I.
right.
They took it for granted. You know, people have asked me in the latter years, said, "Where's y'all sister named May Evelyn?" You know, whatever happened to her? But everybody thought she was our sister because I guess eventually she came back and stayed with us so long that she just kind of grew up with us. Even after that particular time when she was expelled from the church or what have you, were excommunicated or what have you, then that's when she came back. She was with us, I guess, most of those 9 years.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She said that she did not know that Grandma Janie told her. This is what I remember. Grandma Janie told her, the lady that comes around that we call Snoop is your mother.
Mhm.
She's here to take you.
Mhm.
And so she learned that Vashti was her mother on the same day that Vashti took her.
Is that right?
Yeah, and I think it's a devastation she never recovered from.
Mhm.
Emotionally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she stayed really. You know, the term these days is depressed, but I think it was the way it wounded her
Yeah.
was so penetrating
Mhm.
that it's made me very curious about
Yeah.
a lot of things.
Mhm.
You know, but you're the baby.
Yeah.
So, so this is. I was curious. I'm so sorry you weren't at the picnic. It was fun.
Yeah, I know. I missed it, but
It was great watching all this.
I'm hoping that everybody else had a good time. So
Oh yeah, we
that's
thought
all.
about you.
Mhm.
Missed you. This is to get your version of the story of Miles Taylor documented. I'm looking at, so my research is looking at the way lynching stories have survived in African American families,
Mhm.
because even though there's a whole lot of information about that period
Mhm.
in American culture, it's not often looked at in terms of the way it impacted how families survived it
Mhm.
and how families adjusted to that level of violence when it happened to someone, especially a provider, right?
Mhm.
And so I'm trying to make this argument that these stories are very prevalent, and by getting at these stories, we then learn of the generational impact of that era.
Mhm.
So it's not just the static thing that happened one time that was really awful.
Right.
It still happens,
Mhm.
not
Yeah.
in the amount that it does
Mhm.
it did, but what is that lasting effect over generations? And there's this documentary called it's just called Emmett Till. And Emmett's mother talks a lot about Emmett, before she passed. And she was very generous with the filmmaker. And I think that's an interesting contribution to this area that I want to put this work with it.
Okay.
So,
Just get started.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the story was told to me by my mother, your grandmother. And the story went that Miles Taylor was, back in those days, they called it sharecropping, where you work white people's land and all of your bills they took care of, but you had to raise so much crops. Cotton was the main crop then. And most of the times, they would let you have supplies all year long. But then in the fall, which was from September maybe to November, when you gather your crops, that's when you would only make money during that time of year. That's when you would have to pay off your bills. And the story goes that,
sorry, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm afraid that Mimi may wake up.
Yeah. Okay. But
Can I crack your door?
yeah.
Because if I can hear him, because he's been waking up, like if I'm not there, he'll leave the apartment. Yeah. A neighbor came to my apartment. He thought I wasn't in the room. I was sleeping in my bed. He just didn't see me. And she found him knocking at her door, sobbing.
Oh, okay.
That was weird. Okay, so sharecropping.
But continuing the story, sharecropping, as I said, you could get supplies all year from different stores and what they call them general merchandise stores back then, all year long. But then when you came in the fall and made your crops, you had to sell your bills, they call it. Just pay your bills. So it's like a credit card now. You got stuff on credit all year, but when the crops came in, and that's when you had to pay it. And the story goes that, and most black people back there, they was somewhat uneducated. And as they would get supplies all year long, well, the general store managers or what have you, they would add more to them. Sometimes, cheat them. And at the end of the year, what they actually got would be far short of what they actually purchased. I mean, what they had to pay for was what they would more than what they had to actually purchase. And so this kind of thing just went on back then, And as the story goes, my grandfather, he had gone along with that for several years. But then one year he decided, well, I'm going to keep track of all the things I'm doing. So as he got supplies all during the year, and then he kept his own particular record. But then when he got to the end of the year and it was time for him to pay up, they came with him with a bill. He had raised so much cotton, it would have far surpassed what he owed, and then he would have made a profit. But when the time came, they showed him in a deficit. He still owed more than he was supposed to. And that was just a general practice back then. But they thought that he wasn't keeping up with it. But he had his own particular records of every item that he picked up from the general store all year long. And he know what they charged him, and he had it right there on paper. So he documented everything he did. And he knew on paper that what his figures came out to be wasn't what the store manager's figures came out to be. So he challenged them. And then back in those days, anytime you challenge a white man, they would say, well, you just a smart aleck, or you just a smart nigga, or something to that effect. And so as she relayed it to me, she said that eventually he proved to them that they were wrong, but they were just so hard-hearted. Then they just insisted that he owed them more than what he was supposed to have paid them. But he had it documented that he didn't owe them that much. And as they just grew more angry because he defied what they thought he should do. And eventually, my mother just said that a fight ensued because of that. Because they was going to try to make him pay what they thought he had, but he was just only going to pay what he thought. And eventually a fight ensued. And that particular time, I guess it just kind of smoothed on over. But at a later date, you know, just like the Ku Klux Klan, instead of one person handling it, they would, you know, have a Ku Klux Klan meeting, and maybe 5 or 6 people would, you know, come in and try to beat him up just because of that. And as it went on and on, he finally, you know, they got after him and they put him on the run. But during the course of that running, he managed to get a pistol. And as they were pursuing him, he shot, I think, 2 or 3 of them, killed them. Yeah. And that, you know, that really was a no-no. And so, and then actually he got away during that particular time. And he went up into Arkansas, which is, you know, from where we live, Arkansas was only, I don't know, maybe 12, 13 miles, the Arkansas border. And there were some people there that that hid him out for a long time. And they kept looking for him. I don't know, I don't have any documentation or reference on how long he hid. But there was a man, as a matter of fact, the town I live in now, Haynesville, another old man told me that it was a man from Haynesville told him that, well, maybe you should give up, you know, stop running because, you know, they're going to eventually catch you. You know, he just kept talking to them and convinced them. And eventually he convinced Grandfather Miles to give himself up because he convinced him that wasn't any harm going to come to him. But what it actually was, those white people had probably given this man a little money to convince him. And, you know, but I guess he knew him, and he knew him, he was a trusted person.
And he was black?
Yeah. And so eventually he talked him into giving himself up. And so when that happened, well, it was all over then. They took him, you know, and what they did is, I don't know how long it took, if it was a week or 2 weeks, but they took him and hung him. And my mother said that at that time, I have a book at home with that written in there, that Miles Taylor was hanged on, I forget the exact date, but it was in the year 1911.
Yeah, July 24th.
Okay, and I think there's another little sketch that says he possibly was the only person ever hanged in Claiborne, in the parish of Claiborne. That's just like a county in your state.
Yeah.
He was the only person to ever be hanged.
Wow.
But during all this procedure, you know, just to try to put fear in others' heart, and my mother was born like in 1902. She would have only been 9 years old. And all the rest of them, maybe 13 at the most, the oldest one. And the others that had been born, were born already. My mother told me that when they got ready to hang him, they made them go with it and watch it, so that would put fear into them to not go and do something like that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They
And
had to go with the Klan to watch it?
they had whenever the event took place, wherever it took place, they took them. I don't know where it was. Wherever the event took place, that's where they went, and they made them watch it. And actually, they were so young, they didn't quite understand the whole situation, but they remembered it. And that's how she related to me. And as time went on, you know, I found out that she had not really told any of the rest of them about that.
Wow.
But she just told me that all of them, the older brothers and sisters, knew of this, but they didn't know the story she told me about that.
Wow.
But I guess she just felt that I was, you know, maybe the baby, and she felt enough confidence in me to tell me that story.
See, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause that's the story that my mom tells.
Yeah.
Not to that extent, but definitely the part about making the family watch.
Yeah.
And the part that he killed some, it was like he was trying to get away, and he killed a person.